So, welcome to, I'm doing several panels, I'm sorry. This is the Adaptive Music Composition panel. I am Chase Bethea. I am a multi-award winning video game composer. I worked on recently I worked on The Thing Remastered by Night Dive Studios. I did the trailer music for that, and that is the fastest remastered selling game in history right now. So I was very honored to be part of that history. I also did the Gex trilogy trailer music and for a limited run, and that was cool because that revived E3 in a way, but didn't really. So rest in peace, E3. But I also am known for my music for Aground. This is the one on PS4. There's also on Switch, Xbox, Game Pass, Steam, all those other cool things. I have shipped over 25 games in this time. And I've been working in the industry 5,110 days. I won't let you do math, it's 14 years. So it's actually my 14th year anniversary this month. Thank you. Also been featured in the Recording Magazine of last year, April. This is really cool because this is the first video game music article written in this magazine in 20 years. And so I did adaptive music composition in this issue. So you want to go on the website and check out the article, you can check that out. If you have a copy, I'll be to sign it for you. But it also talks about my favorite doll and things like that too. I'm also featured in the Game Boy Studio magazine. That talks about music I worked on Game Boy. My most recent thing is Geometry Battle, which is my first homebrew game shipped on PlayStation, so I'm excited about that. And I'm also featured in the ROM magazine. So that's a little brief introduction about me. We're going to get into some adaptive music composition. So I specialize in this, and I've been doing this for a while because I felt that I'm a player first. I started writing music on the Game Boy camera in 19-something, I forgot, whatever that year was, 2001. But I realized that as I was writing and evolving through my career, that as a player first, I wanted to make sure that the players they really love music. I'm a melomaniac, and some of you may be melomaniacs like I am as well. And so adaptive music really kind of serendipitously got to me in a way and I thought, we need to be giving the player something more. So I have this very iconic and very apropos example. Dynamic music, interactive music, and adaptive music. Does anyone know the difference? I'm glad you don't. I'll be happy to share with you. Interactive music is the amalgamation of both dynamic and adaptive music. Does anyone know that there's adaptive music in Sonic? Excellent. I am happy to show this to you. Adaptive music is where the music conforms to the environment. And you may be familiar with this example. It's muted. It's not coming through. Oh yeah. I have to do some AV stuff, please, excuse me. Good job, Sonic, you died. No. So,
hey everybody, I'm Brixie and I build Lego worlds. Today we're going to be building...
This is not your talk. That's not your talk. It's mine. No ads. All right, so that's adaptive music. When you are in the water part, the music changes from the actual music to that. And that's really cool because I didn't know, I actually discovered this in my research for it. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So as early as 1992, we already had adaptive music. Another cool example, there's two more, is Batman Arkham City. Any players of that game? Yeah, let's get it. I love that game. When I tell you I love that game, I got 390-something Riddler trophies out of that game. So I was closing my eyes and seeing detective mode. I played that game way too much. But the coolest thing about that is dynamic music. And when you're fighting as Batman and all the enemies start to swarm you, the music intensifies. Now this sounds a little bit familiar, yes? That's the dynamic part of it. So it increases with the combat and then decreases when there's less enemies and you're beating ass and taking names and such. So from there, interactive music would be more of the player interacting with the music in something like Dreams or something like that. I would think of that as mostly a good example. So for me, I thought, okay, that's cool, and it's been doing, there's a lot of other examples, build on top 3. Oh, sorry, the last one is a Nier Gestalt. Any Nier fans in here? Okay, cool. I'm not sure, I can hear you. No, so Nier Gestalt, who knows the development cycle of that? And I'm gonna be very specific, I don't want you to like guess, but rather than ask, we have wires now. Warm-ups, okay, yeah. So this is cool. So Nier, the music was built first, and then the game development revolved around it. And so if you go back and play that game, you'll understand why the music is in specific areas, why it works so well. And specifically, the Song of Ancients, when you're in the beginning of the game, the music actually has a non-vocal, and then as you come towards like a small section of the area of the pond, the vocal plus comes in. And then when you move away from it, then she disappears. That's the dynamic music. That thing is brilliant. And so the fact that they created an entire soundtrack from that and built the game around it is unprecedented of its time. So big kudos to the team. Now, for some examples that I'm gonna show you, I've been working with taking it beyond. Because it's been certain genres of just doing orchestral, but my thought was, what if I could do it in many different styles? So I'm gonna show you one example. It was a game jam I did called Space Marmalade. And it is where it's kind of like a Risk, but in space, the game Risk, but in space. So there's a exploration mode, and then there's a exploratory mode. No, there's exploratory mode, and then there's a combat mode. And you're gonna see the transition between both and how they interact with each other. This is using the middleware called Elias. I'll explain what that is later. This is how I'm able to kind of achieve the transitions. I think it broke it up then. So that's how I was able to achieve just on the basic of there was no graphics, but we wanted to have just a bare bones example in terms of it being from exploratory, and then you heard how it just seamlessly turns into the combat. That middleware is typically how we're able to kind of move forward the dynamic music composition. We call them states. There's the typical ones are Fmod, Wise, and Cryware, which is, some of you have seen this when you're playing your games. If you play PS2 games, you might see Cryware. That's a middleware that was able to achieve dynamic things. So there's a little bit of a trail that you'll start to see. Some of you are familiar probably with Fmod or Wise already. And so with Elias, what I've loved about that is I learned it in 10 minutes. And then I submitted a demo to a studio and I got the gig. And that's how intuitive I figured it out in terms of that. And I had started on Fmod Designer. I had started with Hero Engine years before. And so I was just thinking, what else could I possibly do and if I was able to pull that off? So the gig that I ended up getting didn't ship, but I'd be curious to know after I play the example what you all think about it. So here's a little example of this music called Man of Woods from a game called Potions, Please. It was my first really big title that I did 5-something years ago. And this is going to be the showcasing of from using Cubase, which is a digital audio workstation of how I write the music, and then into the Elias middleware. And then I'm going to show an example into the game. So I want to go back and just showcase one thing, because it's a good thing to cut things in context, is the show me industry. This is what the UI looks like for Elias. And as you can see, there's 3 different areas. So this game was kind of pioneered in a way, whereas I thought, if you're traversing, I'm going to show the game between 3 different areas. You're going to be in the truck, creating potions. Then you're going to be in the exterior, talking to the people, the townspeople, trying to gather materials, and then, or rather, gather receipts and inquiries for creating, or what is it called, orders for people to heal from their sickness or make them happy. And then there's mini games where you get the materials, so oregano or other spices and things like that to make your potions. And so with those 3 states, I needed a mini game sound theme, I needed an exterior theme, and I needed an interior theme. But I needed to be seamless, because when the player's coming in and out or moving, traversing through the areas, these are the 3 different parts. I'm going to play this example one more time, now that you know, and then watch how I transition between, and then listen how seamless it's going to be, and then I'm going to show the example for the game. So now we got that. I'll show you the game. This is an exclusive. I actually never used this before, so this is a treat for you. This is what it looks like in my, sorry, I want to kind of go back here. I actually didn't mention something that's kind of important. This is what it looks like in Cubase. I write in what's called in composition. There's forms of composition, AB, ABA, ternary, and so forth, binary form, etc. I write in the through compose form to achieve this. In Cubase, this thing here is called an arranger editor. It's typically used in commercials and film to kind of do stems of 30 seconds, 60 seconds of music. I was the first person, which is why I wrote this in the Recording Magazine article, to figure out how to test it before I was actually put it in middleware. So I kind of pioneered this technique on my own just by figuring it out and doing it this way. But this is what it kind of looks like. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea. I select the instrumentations, then I try all the different form tests. So I want A to go to D, then A back to A, then to E, and whatever instrumentation things are happening in between. Back to the game. So this is the exterior. Now we're the interior. The music doesn't quite change just yet because I'm testing it inside the Cubase, like I said. It should transition. There we go, there. That was a transition. Now, the thing about what's happening is, if you listen carefully, there's certain instruments that are coming in and out. There is a cello playing right now. So everyone's experience of playing the game is going to be different at every moment of time. Back in the truck. So notice in the beginning you didn't hear that harmonica before. And so those are typically what moments if the player would be talking to you or not. That's potions, please, for the area of Manor Woods. Thank you, thank you. So, I just finished a Ground Zero soundtrack. Yes, I know it's a big relief. I'm working on that game for about 3.5, 4 years. It is the spin-off to a Ground. If you're not familiar with a Ground, it's like Minecraft into art, but with quests and purpose. So you can do a magic path, you can do a science path, or you can do what I had pushed to do, which is a hybrid path. And so in a Ground Zero, it's more 3D. Now, that is kind of like Minecraft for real, but then Factorio. So that's kind of like the conflation of how it builds. But again, with progress and progression. And so what I was thinking about was if now we're gonna move into an electronic form. Because I know that was so cozy, you like almost want to take a nap because it's been a very, very awesome MAGFest this year, right? So now with this one, I had the theme about changing the music based on items being changed in the first floor, combat and exploration on the second floor. The third floor is a different theme. I don't want to give it all away, but I'm going to show you part of the third floor and the fourth floor. The fourth floor is where it's supposed to be a subway. And I'm choosing specific instruments to kind of make that indicative of the area for the player, but every time it's going to be different for when you're playing within the game. So first of all, within dynamic music, I don't know any game that has ever had music change based on the items you choose. And it's multiplayer. There's multiplayer too, in case you didn't know. But the multiplayer action will be based off of the player one, and that music's going to change there. So let me see here if this is the implementation. I might be jumping a tiny bit ahead, because I have to do a lot of math. You know me in numbers already. Okay, yeah, this is great. So this is the DAW version of what you're seeing in terms of how I chose the instruments, and then what I'm figuring out where is it going to play. I think we jumped in a little bit. Yeah, let me just see here. Okay, yeah, perfect. I'm going to talk through this. Typically, I would stream this. I used to stream this. I was streaming on Twitch for 10 years of how I rate video game music. This is kind of what you're seeing on the stream. I just make the music and then figure it out and see what works and all that stuff. And the Twitch was gamer composer, but I'm most likely not going to be doing that anymore. I'm going to pivot. It just kind of depends on like the schedule of things. That's not my computer. Oh no, that's the sound. So it should be playing. Oh, that's right. So I have to stem out the certain music stems to get it to work. I have to code it to 41.1 16-bit in order for it to work in the game. I tested it in Audacity, and then I implement it. Now, the reason I'm explaining this process is because I'm not using any audio middleware. So the math that I had to do was on paper to find out in decimal forms, where is the seamless loop going to happen, which makes my job a lot harder, but it's more gratifying for when it's going to interchange and interweave between each other. So I'm just going to skip through a little bit here. Then I start to test it out with the code. So this here, if you can see, it says lead. That's me testing it out. Then I have to put the code into the game, and then luckily I work with the programmer, and then we go from there. I see a question in the back. I don't work with the animators and level designers. They're on that timeline with the programmer, thankfully. I'm working directly with the programmer. And what's fortunate for me is I took HTML in high school, and I ended up having like the best HTML code in the class at the time. I didn't know this was going to help me later on, but this engine is built in HATS and OpenAL and something else, and it uses HTML, so I understand it. So C++ or C# or anything like that I don't have to worry about. So this is just all HTML type of code things. So then I put the code in to kind of get it going, and then I see how the music is going to play. Actually, I'm going to sit out of this one and I'm going to show you floor 3. Let's see how this works. So this is the combat effects transition. It's going to be...
Okay, so let's say this one section is playing during the game. So let's cue that up. Is the sound effect that's going to happen? Hear this. Sound effects coming out. So, just to show you really quickly,
This is so meta.
there is a sound effect that's going to happen. It doesn't happen at C, that's why we didn't get it. So, let's do a new chain.
Just want to pause it really quick. Chase, thank you for getting me thus far. This is what I was saying before, this is the arranger, and so I'm about to actually test it to see how it's going to work as I change between the different music transitions that I have. If you direct your attention to the top of all those nice, beautiful colors, B, C, D, G, H, E, I know alphabets, and then I'm going to implement those colors into them and then move around to make it seem that how I want it to work before I actually put all the code in. So this is kind of, like I said, how I'm testing.
Do B into I, and then it'll be coming out of this state of the music, and then the sound effect will say that it's moving into a combat, and then when this sound effect happens, I'm just isolate it so you can hear. Sound effect happen. So that's cool.
So I'm showing the intro, the sound effect that's going to happen for the transition for the combat, and then the outro of it. And this is important for just seamlessly doing it without the middle. So let me go back.
Okay, so let's play this in this section.
Remember, subway theme. And back to the exploratory form.
So,
Yep, thank you. So now we will see the Subnautica session. Now now we're out of subway and we're into the water area. And so when I'm writing music, I'm thinking of the music palette first because I come from the retro background of just sonic identity. And so every instrument is meticulously thought of, and the musical and thematic elements are thought of as well. So this is the combat section. So you go from the exploratory to when you're encountering any enemies in there for combat. So now, everything's good in context. This is how it is within the game. We encountered an enemy. And that's a ground zero music. Thank you, thank you. So those are most of the examples that I have for Dan. I was going to show the Quest Like Pocket one, but I have a YouTube channel that I have a series where I'm going to be doing most of these called How I Compose. If we're interested, I know I still have time, I can show some, but I did see a question, so I'm happy to answer any questions in between and get them back for examples. Yeah, I see. Typically, so the question is if I'm having a reference to the tracks or playlists to go through, or if I'm going through every single synth patch that's out there and wasting my life and energy on things. The answer is both. I asked the developer to give me an asset list. The asset list is comprised of, hey, what were you inspired by when you had the music design for this game? And they give me references out of nowhere. And because I'm a game player first, I'm a player first, I understand where the player is coming from, and then I know music, I'm able to kind of discern within the reference what the rhythm is, what the chords are, how its chord progressions are happening, and then I just do a quick analysis on the paper and then figure it out, and then I move on to the next thing. And if it moves me, cool. If it doesn't move me, I'm understanding what they like. Because sometimes I ask for timestamps, like, did you like the jumps here, but you didn't like the singing there? Did you like this bass line here? No, you didn't like that bass line. You picked the wrong note. You wouldn't know that? Okay, then fine. I'm moving on. And so that's one area of it. But then to meticulously do the instruments, I actually chose the core drum machine for the subway area, because it had like this bell and kind of like train track sound. And so that was something that I went through all the drum preset samples, and then meticulously did that, and then I layered it and got through the other things for those things. So sometimes, like I said, like it's both, and I choose different synth samples and other things to theme, because I think the theme and the feeling is important for the player, especially when it's dynamic. You want to know that it's an immersive experience when you're relaxed from your hard work at days, and then it should be comprised of all that. So that's how I kind of approach it. Your guest in the front.
When you're creating a dynamic music environment, how are you picking and choosing out what's going to be like your spine of the music that maybe stays a little more consistent while other things ebb and flow? Like, is it more consistent in like a chord progression, a bass line, a drum track? Like, how do you pick that out, and then how do you kind of expand it out from there?
So the question is, how am I picking what the mostly like the sound palette is in terms of, and then the seamlessness of it? And the way that I do it is depending on what I'm thinking about what the game can do, because I'm thinking as a designer overall, and if I'm playing the game, then I understand, okay, when this player is in this biome, I'm going to show you an example of they're in this specific biome of a desert. What does that sound like? And what is it going to be the transition would be? Well, thinking if it's going to be intense and it's more of a heavy layer, then maybe some drums might help. And so I'll put something like this together in this regard.
As you can tell from that layer alone, it's pretty powerful in terms of combat. And
I would agree. So that's the percussion layer for when I know I need to kind of have a base of what it's going to be, because I know where it needs to start from, and then I build it from there. And this other example here, I'm talking about a chord progression example comparison, whereas when I went from, I think it was like a G7-9, because the chords are up there somewhere. And if I need to kind of make it feel more intense, or if I need to make it feel more relaxed. Does that answer your question? Great. Yes.
Do you consider, so if we're talking like the actual structure or form of the composition, like if you know that it's the kind of game where, for instance, someone might be coming in and out of states a lot more quickly, does that affect how you structure it? So like in my mind, the frustration I maybe had with games in the past is a song is often too long, or a section is too long for what you're actually going to be able to experience. So there's going to be parts of the song you'll never get to hear unless you like pull up the soundtrack. Does that affect how you put it together if you know ahead of time what the game is going to be?
Absolutely, because I'm playing it first. Those who are not playing it first and only thinking about like just the music part of it, they're not able to kind of structure it down, and that's an implementation problem. And that's why in the other video that I have, which is a little bit different. It's kind of thinking because I'm doing a blog about it. I'll post about it soon, and it is me testing it to see how long it is before it actually goes in the game, so that you can feel it out before, because that ground zero is pretty far. So I'm making sure that those sections are nice and tight, and then I'm sitting there and loading the thing and putting the thing in here and doing all that other stuff to it. See the fade out code that's right there? That's how I know, like, okay, this is too long. Is it going to move into the next thing? And where? So I know there was a gap there as a problem. I know that I have to fix that then. Does that answer your question? Cool. And the jack and the blue?
So when you're writing the music, are you expected to handle the middleware, or does a developer work with that and you're just doing middleware for a demo?
It's not expected. I usually just want to passionately do it because I want the players to have a good experience. I'm not someone who believes in loops things anymore. Now, if the developer wants to hire me for the loop stuff, cool. I'm okay with that. But I think that I'm doing a disservice now in 2025 to just have monotonous loops and some things in that regard. So typically, I just want to do it on my own if I can. Yes, in the back?
Have you ever been in a situation where, like, the developer gives you your game with all the timings that you see, you produce the music, you get everything the way you like it, and then something changes? Like, they change the level transition and all of the timings are off. Because it sounds like everything you're describing is, like, very tightly coupled to what you saw when you wrote the music, but things change. Like, does that ever happen to you, or is this just part of your contract? Like, it won't change it anymore?
No, welcome to game development. Things change all the time. Have you heard of delays?
Like, how do you deal with that? Because if you get the timing exactly the way you like it, and then suddenly they redo something, it throws everything off. Like, how do you have to go through the whole process again and, like, figure out the timing again?
No, because I overwrite. I know game development. Remember, I'm a player first. They can't play me. So, thankfully, please don't make this happen. As I say things out loud, I have to be very careful. I know that the reason I was talking about through composed form, are there any musicians in the room? Any chance? Awesome, okay, cool. I don't know, so I'm obviously curious. So we're familiar with forms. Through composed form has been the most effective way to kind of do this because it will cover all your bases in case something like that happens. And also, if it's a good game developer, they will be able to reuse the music somewhere else. You never really have to be in that position again. They'll understand, like, okay, we have it here, but we're going to move it and use it over there. And that way you don't have to do extra work. And if you do, charge them for it. So I was thinking, I have a question for y'all now. So remember the thing about Potions, Please, that was just playing? How many of you like the music? Be honest, I'm not going to be upset. How many of you like the music? Raise your hand. I just kind of just get an idea of, you know, that's over half. That's pretty cool. How many of you would see that if I performed it live? Would you, okay?
Who would be playing? Is it just you, or do you get like a small ensemble playing?
I'm gonna figure that out after. I'm actually asking y'all because I'm thinking of doing concerts in adaptive form, and I've already kind of pulled this off in a little bit, but I'm gonna scale it up to something bigger. I don't want to say what it is, but I'm just kind of getting a general consensus. So it could be me plus like an ensemble and everything. Yeah, is there a question? This game's gonna play on the projector. There's gonna be lights. It's gonna be an experience, and I'm thinking about kind of pulling it off. Okay, cool. Is that a consensus? Yep. Okay. What about a ground zero? Would anybody first see a concert of a ground zero? Like the things I'm just like that. Let me get it. Who liked the music that I played thus far of ground zero? I'm just curious. Okay, cool. Thank you. Now, would you see that in concert? Cool. I'm thinking of doing a ground world tour. It's going to be the 5-year anniversary of this coming out this year, and it should be like a vinyl thing, but I'm going to conflate the ground and a ground zero thing to kind of get that going. So I'm just kind of getting an idea of what that would be, but I don't think it's you got the big composers doing those things, but the indie game composers are not really showcased in that manner. So I'm kind of just figuring out, like, I need to figure out who's interested and then kind of put forth of it, and then I'll make it happen. So it's going with that there. I have any other examples that I want to go back to that I can answer any questions for y'all as I'm thinking about, and because otherwise I just answer questions through. In the back, yes, with the mask.
Not strictly for these examples, but how do you structure
Yeah, I just charge them up the wazoo. No, there's a slight formula for it. First, you need to there's a plugin on pluginalliance.com. I'm trying to look at time. So I'm not sure how I am on time, but I'm going to share some things. Go to pluginalliance.com. Oops. There is something called a clock. And the first step you need to do is you need to determine how long it takes you to write the music that you need to do and the style of music. That's number one. Also, you need to include what your value is in terms of what it costs to live, so that's included as well. But on here, there is a clock that you can install on your DAW. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it, but it is on this page if you kind of scroll through and look for it. And they do have a lot of sales, so sign up for the newsletter because they practically give these away for free. So install that, figure out how long it takes to write that style of music, and then add that obviously to your cost of living, so on and so forth. And then you would need to add at least like 20% to that, and that's how you kind of go from there. Yes.
I just want to say that I really like your idea of like the music shifting with smaller actions, just like changing items. Because I remember I really loved this concept when music as I was a kid. I think my first exposure to it was, I don't know if you remember this, but Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Yeah, Wind Waker.
They have this musical thing that goes on with whenever you do a hit or hit something, and it builds up each business. So that is so cool that it's not just shifting when I leave or enter an area, it's shifting based on what I'm doing and hitting, and that blew my mind.
Absolutely, yeah. Dynamic music is really powerful in that. Has anyone noticed, have you noticed and this is really getting into tech stuff, but has anyone noticed the motif that happens when you hit a Moblin in Breath of the Wild? Raise your hand if you heard that small motif. Can anyone sing it? It's very light. Dun, dun, dun. And you can miss it because it's like dun, 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 dun. But as soon as you hit an enemy, dun, 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 just very light. It's so masterful. It's beautiful. So those things are like that. They inspire me to kind of push the things forward, and I appreciate that you like what I'm trying to do for the other types of games and things as well. Did I hear a question over here?
Yeah, I'm wondering on the motions plays in the exterior area.
Yeah.
You mentioned the cello coming in at one point, and you said like every player's experience is going to be different. I'm wondering if you could go more in depth on that.
Sure. So what is cool about the instrumentation of dynamic music is that you can write it in the through composed form, but when the instrumentation is masterfully done in sections, you can have it stacked in vertical form, and what you're looking and thinking about is horizontal form. So if I have, let's look at this example here. Let's say I have a cocoa drum, which is just like a coconut kalimba that I kind of just knocked on, and then I have the cello, and then I have kalimba. But that only plays for one section of it. Then I can mute that and take that out, and then I can add another piece of instrument in there, like the harmonica. So if you and your friend are playing, it's never going to be the same because you're going to be moving at different parts in the game at different times. So that's what I mean by those sections, instruments coming in and out.
And so like the different layers are coming in based on where you're scrolling, like in the game.
Where you are in the game, because every player is not going to be in the same place. Have other questions? Yes.
I'm guessing it would be hard to do, but when you're making like the dynamic sections, do you ever make it so that for like to add tension or something that part of one of the versions of the song is like a different time signature to give it a different feel?
Yeah, absolutely. That was what I was doing with some of the stuff in the Ground Zero, whereas in the combat section will feel like it's going to be in something else. In fact, the most recent ending of it, I was pulling that off for, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, you'll see. And a lot of time signature differences are in here. In fact, one that I don't think has ever been written in video game history of a specific time signature that only one person was able to figure out. So yeah, if you like that stuff, check that out, and that's in that regard too. But any other questions? Oh, yes, in the back.
Along with you said middleware, you said that you do yourself, it's not expected from the game developers. Do you also, with like mixing and mastering on track, do you do that yourself?
Hell no. No, I have to mix it. I do that. I'm mixing while I'm writing sometimes, but that's because I've been doing it, like I said, for so long, and I went to school for art engineering as well. So I kind of have the idea, but I don't master my stuff anymore. I learned that heavy lesson on DD Quest when I did that. I told myself at the end of that 32 something tracks, I will ever do this again. And I love hiring the mastering engineers. I love it. And I highly recommend everybody else do it too. Yes.
Question about transition stuff. I noticed in Ground Zero, in order to transition, you kind of like added this pause or like this silence before we went to the combat. Was that something where you program or like you could actually transitioning, doing some kind of like silencing in order to like bring up something else? Or is that also like part of the one that you had where it's just like in general as part of this it's quiet?
Yeah, so the question is mostly do I think about silence and music to kind of do the transition seamlessly for the dynamic parts? And sometimes it just depends on the area that I'm playing within the game. Then I need to know. But when you're stumbling out most of these sections, there has to be at least 2 seconds of silence for a nice fade in and fade out, especially if you're not using middleware. Middleware, you can kind of program that in and it will do it. You can tell it with the numbers to X, 3,000 seconds or whatever. But if not, then you have to kind of take that in consideration along with the external stems so that it's seamless. Otherwise, you're going to have some confliction. The thing when you happen in the game is that was a lead time that I had to program in with the code because even though I had that 2 seconds, the fade was off. So the developer, if I leave it to them, they would have the thing overlapping and it would be very jarring and you wouldn't want to play. So I'm responsible for making sure that it's smooth and cooler than grease and butter. Any other questions? Yeah, yes.
In the potion game, it was talking to the NPC. Was it Kazoo that was playing? Or no?
No, that was a. Let's play it.
There was an instrument there.
It's been so long.
I noticed something that I wanted to ask about.
That one.
Yeah, I was doing a gameplay portion.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
It was during a video when you were actually playing it.
Okay.
And I can just describe it if we can't find it.
Does it sound like this?
Yeah. No, I think it was.
It was the harmonica.
Yeah. Something I noticed when it was happening was the harmonica kind of continued even after you were done talking to the NPC. It didn't sort of immediately transition, and it just kind of made me think that when you make, obviously there's a lot of different techniques, right? You can just have a very simple one fades in, the other fades out. You can have one track overwhelm, the other track simply bang. But I know sometimes also they'll set up points in the transition points.
Yes.
In a piece. So I'm wondering, in that moment, was that like it hadn't hit the transition point yet? So the kazoo was still playing, even though the player left the conversation?
No, at that point it's me just testing to see without it in the game where it needs to be and where it may go. So I was doing what you're talking about in real time to see what happened if it's not even implemented yet. Typically I would design these things on like index cards as I'm testing it out. But yeah. Any other questions about Potions Please or Ground Zero or Quest Like Pocket or in general? Because I think I don't have even a card thing. I think it's coming up on time. But other than that, did you have any questions about the Space Marmalade one that I did? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming to the Adaptive Music Composition. I'm Chase Bethea. I will be a celebrity guest on MAGFest Versus tonight at 7. So if you want to help support me on the team I'm going to be on, come through. And other than that, I will be happy to talk to you after. And have a great rest of your MAGFest. Yoy! Thank you so much.